Okay, so in order to do a titration lab, first and foremost you need goggles. You have to wear them for safety and to protect your eyes. Second, you need a ring stand, which is right here. You also need a barrette clamp that attaches to the ring stand like this. Then you need two barrettes, one for your acid, one for your base, and those go in like this. Then this one goes on the other side. Okay, and then you also need two funnels, one to go up here for the base and one to go up here for the acid. And you also need a waste beaker. Then you need two regular 100 milliliter beakers, one for the acid and one for the base. You also need an Erlenmeyer flask that you empty it into, which goes right here. Then you need a bottle of distilled water so you can clean the flask as you go. And then finally you need your base and your acid. And lastly, you need phenolphthalein, which is your indicator, and this shows the change from an acid to a neutral solution.
So this is 0.1 molarity HCl, and I put it in here, and we're going to try to titrate it with NaOH. So putting it in here and such. So there's air bubbles in here right now, so we got to run the air bubbles out into the waste container. And then once there's no air bubbles, you can close it. The 0.1 NaOH, and I'm going to pour it into here. And just like with the HCl, you got to run out the air bubbles.
Alright, so first we need to measure the volumes of both the acid and the base by looking at the bottom of the meniscus. So this one, if you look right here, is 7.42, and then this one is 14.90. So now I'm going to empty about 10 to 12 milliliters of each into the flask.
Alright, so now we're going to take a bottle of distilled water and clean off the tip of the barrette and get rid of all the leftover HCl. And also the inside of the Erlenmeyer flask. Make sure to remember when you're cleaning the tip of the barrette and the inside of the Erlenmeyer flask to add about 20 milliliters of distilled water.
Alright, so before we empty the base into the flask, we need to add 2 drops of indicator, which is phenolphthalein.
There we go.
Now you got to slowly add sodium hydroxide solution from the base barrette to the flask, and you want to gently swirl the flask as you add the base. As the pink color persists for a longer time, be cautious about the amount of base added. You are nearing the equivalence point or end point. Occasionally wash down the sides of the flasks with distilled water. And as it gets closer, you gotta go drop by drop and swirl. You're going to do this until you get a very light pink color. And that is how you do a titration.
Once you have a pink that lasts for 20 to 30 seconds, you should stop adding the base, and this gives you a neutral solution.
So now, at the end of the titration, we have to determine the volume in each burette. In our strong acid here, we now have 18.72 milliliters left. In our strong base, we have 29.65 milliliters. The difference in the strong acid between the starting and the end volumes was 11.3 milliliters, and in the strong base, it was 14.75 milliliters.
After you have conducted the titration, you have to find the concentration of HCl using the known 0.1 molarity NaOH and the change in volume of the acid and base. You do this by using the formula MA-VA equals MIB-VIB. I have put the concentrations of the different molarities and volumes into the equation, and you will do the molarity of HCl equals the molarity of NaOH times the volume of NaOH over the volume of HCl. And in the equation it looks like this, and you end up with a molarity for HCl of approximately 0.13.